the four corners of the pump card. My patented method. All right. So everything's in pressure. If I write a number on the board, it's pressure. Okay? That way I don't have to write PSI. Downhole pump card, full liquid fillage. It's a rectangle, right? We don't know why, but we're about to. Here we go. So we come down the bottom of the stroke. We're drawing the card here. We're on the downstroke. So we're on the downstroke. Here we go. We're going this way. The pump plunger is moving down. Traveling valve is open, of course. The standing valve is closed. And the pressures I'm choosing are 3,000 psi above the plunger and 100 psi below for the pump intake pressure. And since I'm on the downstroke and the traveling valve is open, I must have 3,000 psi right here. When the pump plunger finally reaches the bottom of the stroke, right here, bottom of the stroke, what must the traveling valve do when the plunger stops? Falls on seat. Now, it falls on seat with 3,000 psi above it and 3,000 psi still below it. So what we know is that traveling valve is lightly on seat. Now, we reached the bottom of the stroke. You just told me that when a plunger reaches the bottom of the stroke that traveling valve closes. Bottom left-hand corner of the pump card is where the traveling valve closes. Why? Because you just told it to me. Now, we remember this non-homemade rod string. And when we pulled tension on the rods, did the pump move immediately? No. Why not? Because we had to build tension in the rods. We got to build some tension. Tension's increasing. So when we start pulling up on this rod string, and it doesn't take very much. We're talking a fraction of an inch. But as the rods are stretched, because the pumping unit is starting to move up, this plunger moves, I mean, just a hair. It's almost imperceivable. But when that plunger moves, just a fraction, an incompressible fluid, when you move just this much, you relieve all the pressure on it. So this from bottom left to top left happens very quickly. And when this happens, what's the minimum pressure that my chamber will drop to? About 100 psi, right? Because once it drops to 100, what's going to happen? The standing valve is going to open, and I'm going to start filling below the plunger with liquid at 100 psi. So what happens when I finally lift that plunger, meaning I start going to the right? What happens? Who? Yes, but what valve opened? Standing valve open. That's exactly right. And I have flow into the pump's barrel. Perfect. And so for the next few seconds, this plunger continues to move up all the way to the top of its stroke inside the barrel. The entire time, the standing valve is open, fluids are coming in at 100 psi. It's 100 psi in here. And liquid is just below the plunger because I have full liquid fillage. So I go all the way to the top of the stroke. But when this plunger stops, there's no more room for fluid to come in, so what's going to happen? I've been filling, the plunger's moving up, I'm filling, I stop the plunger. What's going to happen? Standing valve's going to close. That's right. The standing valve closes. And remember, our incompressible toilet paper and paper towel roll. That's what we have here, an incompressible column of liquid. So what are the rods going to do at the top of the stroke? Now the horse head comes down, and as the rods contract, what am I losing? I'm losing the tension in the rods. So the tension in the rods starts to decrease quickly because it's incompressible. And when the tension in the rods decreases and the plunger pushes down on the surface of this liquid, what's going to happen to the traveling valve? It's going to come off seat right here. So the traveling valve opens. And at that instant, the traveling valve opens because it has compressed the liquid to what pressure? 3,000 psi. And once it equalizes, the plunger moves through the fluid, and we're right back to where we started. Those are the four corners of the pump card. Every time you see a pump card, except for a very few special cases, you can know what the pump is doing and what valve action you have by where you are on that card.